You've just accessed Hardware is Forever, your source for the expert insights, ideas, and innovations you need to do more in the electronics manufacturing industry. From optimization to operations, join us as we put the pieces together for a better approach to manufacturing. Let's go.
Welcome back to Hardware is Forever. I'm Chris Bentliff. Jay Patel is the CEO at Amtech. And Jay, it's good to be with you. And we were just talking a few moments ago about a way to think about production, a way to think about productivity, a way to think about focus that with the right partner, any sort of small, medium-sized business can start to, I guess, recalibrate some of the ways that they're maybe used to doing things. I want to get your take on it because you're a lot more, you can explain this in a lot more interesting way than me. Talk to me a little bit about this shift, or this, maybe not shift, but mindset that you're sort of adopting, actions that you're adopting in this space.
Yeah, so I think, a lot of ideas start out at different industries and they kind of eventually get adopted in different ways. And I think this is one of the things that, being in Detroit, we really have witnessed and seen. Not really maybe for me firsthand, but I've seen the industry grow this way and historically just been able to access that type of history more than people maybe in other areas, because I am in Detroit. I am in the hub of automotive development in at least North America, if not the world. So this is a concept that really a lot of the automotive OEMs, which when this idea really got implemented, was when the major automotive OEMs in North America were Ford, GM, and at that time Chrysler. And it's a method that's really worked for them, and it's kind of been the method that has become the standard in the automotive industry. And they've been working on it probably for 2 to 3 decades in this manner, more than that, probably maybe even 4 decades in this manner. And really it's worked. And the idea is, how can we implement that at a smaller scale so that it helps not only automotive OEMs, but small and medium-sized OEMs in the market who may not have access to this, or even have the partners who provide this type of service, so that or this type of support.
What that's sort of a tantalizing intro to what is this kind of method? What's unique about it? What's different than the status quo, or what you're used to seeing, or how people might be doing it now that could be improved? Because I think sometimes there's a cost to not. I didn't even know this was a thing I should be thinking about, versus I'm going to go look for this alternative. And I think you're opening some minds here. So describe it to me.
So really, in a nutshell, is find partners who will become a tier one for your company, just as a lot of the automotive industry has contracted or worked with tier ones to help them develop almost every single component in the vehicle, from seats to radios to steering wheels to windshields to, anything major component of the even gas tanks, batteries, is done through this type of tier one partnership. So we'll talk about, what the traditional method was and is in automotive, and then we'll talk about what it is currently in the small and medium-sized OEM market, and then how we feel like Amtech is positioning itself to become a tier one for the small and medium-sized businesses, and what the potential advantages of that is for those potential businesses. So the traditional method was, GM, Ford, Chrysler, even all the other non-North American automotive OEMs had an engineering R&D department in-house. They did the manufacturing in-house. Those companies did the sales, the distribution in-house, and marketing in-house. And they also developed the product roadmap in-house. And then, because they had become so large and because they had become so successful, they kind of became really, really big, and they were not able to pivot fast enough to market demands and have the right people in the room who had a pulse on manufacturing technologies or different technologies that enhance the customer experience. because they were just in their own wells or in their own worlds. So at a certain point, their innovation slowed down, their productivity slowed down, their quality slowed down, and because they were just managing too much at that time. And then at one point, I remember the story of Ford. Ford basically said, "We are going to spin everything out," and that's when Ford spun out the parts division to Visteon, and Visteon became that tier one. So whenever Ford needed something, Ford would say, "Hey, Visteon, here is a product that I want. Here are the specs. I'm going to give it to you and 3 or 4 other people like you. We want you to bid on it, and we want you to propose something to us." And at that time, because they were bidding on 3 or 4 different companies, and because those companies were focused on that particular radio or that particular widget or that windshield or power window modules, they were able to bring a lot of innovation and to be able to differentiate themselves from other competitors. And they were able to provide, the OEMs different options, like, tier 1A would be their approach. Tier 1B would, they got the same thing done, but this would be their approach. Tier 1C would have a different approach. So now the automotive OEMs all of a sudden got introduced to different approaches, different methodologies to see which one was the best short-term, long-term for us. They built in competition, so pricing came down. And because the tier ones were in charge of quality, on-time delivery, and price, then they were able to actually have the tier ones be responsible for that in a competitive marketplace. So if you see it right now, all the automotive OEMs have become people who spec out products, reward it, and then ultimately manage to make sure that the product that the tier one is supplying is adhering to that spec and on-time delivery, quality, all those type of things. They just manage that. So then now what happens with the automotive OEMs? Not only they're getting a better product in a more competitive market, but then they're able to turn those resources that they had, and rather than focus on actually manufacturing the vehicle or components of the vehicle, they're having partners who make them better because they have a larger worldview and access, and really they have a motivation to become innovative. And then the automotive OEMs are able to focus on really what makes them money, which is innovation and sales and marketing, how to develop product that the customer wants and make sure that they're not being out innovated. And then also how to make sure that they share the value proposition of their particular product, in this case, vehicles, to their market so they can get a bigger market share.
Let me unpack some of this because I think it's really interesting. So the status quo, we're going to have huge departments with a ton of resources. They're going to be big and expensive. They're going to move slowly, and everything is going to be in-house, and we're going to get stuff done. And that's how eventually we'll build something. And I love your analogy, which is, a great example of the illustration of automotive manufacturing, but we can all relate to this. We're trying to do all these different things in-house, small and medium businesses. Tier one is a phrase or a word that describes outsourcing. Isn't what comes to mind for me. It's developing alongside with trusted people and partners who can bring to life. I love what you said of, hey, this is what we have in mind, build it for us. Not here's the widget, please go mass produce this. Instead, it's here are the specs. We need you to come up with this solution because you're great at that. And we're going to go focus on this thing that we're great at. How does that, I guess, funnel down, or in a more microcosmic way, when we're talking about small organizations or medium-sized businesses, how can we adopt some of those same philosophies or perspectives so that we are looking kind of for those tier one partners as well? What are you looking for as you're starting to develop those things?
So, for us, we work with OEMs. So we may not be a tier one, but we work with OEMs. OEMs contract us to do engineering sometimes, circuit board assembly, electromechanical assembly. And then we also have our vendors who directly come to us. So we have people who are with the distribution channels or provide us bare boards or plastics or something like that. And then they work with us to provide us that type of knowledge and that experience to make us better. But it's not about the product integration. And I think the difference that we're thinking about and kind of proposing, and how, SMBs have not traditionally looked for a tier one type of relationship for their particular products. Typically, the tier one, like the small, medium size OEMs, will have an engineering staff, will have some type of manufacturing in house. They'll definitely have sales. They'll definitely have production roadmap and innovation in house. So like not innovation, but like, where the industry is going, what's the next generation of products, they have that roadmap in house. And what we're finding in the SMB market, and what a lot of people are struggling with, is as they grow and as it turns over, employees come and they go, they're not able to keep that continuity and build that strong engineering staff like they did before. So that's a struggle that they're having. They're having a struggle of actually manufacturing in-house because finding those type of resources are not available. Sometimes small and medium-sized businesses cannot afford to hire an entire engineering staff. They may need 3 or 4 engineers to develop this project, but after that project is done, they don't have enough work for them because that's how their product cycles are. So the whole idea is that SMBs can take a look at Amtech, and I don't know if people like Amtech or companies like us are actually providing this, but you come to us with specs and we will give you a product. And the nice thing about that is that we scale. So when we need engineering support and we're focusing on that product development for you, we're focusing on that. We're focusing on launching that product, doing the validation, everything for you. And then once that's over, we're able to turn our resources to another project. So you almost get a engineering staff that is fractional, but we manage all that for you. So your product development, validation, manufacturing, supply chain, to an extent that if there are component issues, we have actually helped customers redesign product to make sure that their cash flow and their sales do not go down. So that whole concept of integrating with a tier one and saying, here is my spec, build it for me, it's something that has been implemented and accepted in automotive OEM level, maybe at a large scale. But to bring that down to an SMB, really, how do people do it? How do they protect themselves? Both, how does the tier one protect themselves, and how does the OEM protect themselves, or how do they really work together? And I think we're at a point where we've witnessed, the strengths and the risks of the automotive OEM, both on the OEM side and the tier one side, and we can work around that to add significant value. Now, if I'm an SMB that says, okay, all I got to do is spec out my product and work with you guys to develop it, then what am I going to do? Well, you do what you're supposed to do, is innovate and make sure you can communicate or sell your value proposition to the market so you can win more market. And if you're able to be in the market more and the market tells you like, no, you are selling us this product, but we really need this. Now you have that time to be able to talk to the market, get that feedback, re-engage the tier one, and get a product out there that really gives you more market share because you are listening to the market. So this entire ecosystem and engagement level exists automotive OEM, but we want to say that, hey, look, if you're an SMB and you want to leverage the strength of this type of model, we are available and we would like to engage with you on that because we know what type of value we can really add. And it's a win-win for everybody because now we have a partnership with the customer. We can engage with them more. We're not hesitant to say, hey, this is what's going on. Like, we are a partner in their success, and we can share things that we don't necessarily share and engage at different levels in the organization, not only on the engineering side or the manufacturing side or supply chain side, but all the way up into the product roadmap and be able to introduce different concepts. So the customer can prevent them from being out innovated and be a partner in their success.
We all kind of have our own status quo, and sometimes the competitive value proposition to doing something isn't an alternative; it's the same. And part of what I love about what you're saying is, well, what are you going to do? You are going to focus on why you started your business in the first place, which wasn't to go sort of handle widgets; it was to create change or innovation or spur invention or whatever. And I love what you're saying on find the right partners to help you build momentum around that. And I'm sure that there are people that are going to be having lots of questions around. So, okay, interesting, but explain it more to me. And I feel like you're hearing it a lot on the podcast or the video, but jump over to buildamtech.com. There's lots of ways to just start the conversation, right, Jay? And you're happy to walk people through how this could work, what's different, what's the same, what's the right fit, how this all works, because it can be a paradigm shift. And I think it's an exciting one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. And I we have become a tier one for a lot of our customers, and it's been a great engagement. We've allowed them to scale very, very quickly. And then we've also helped them reduce downtime because we're involved in the supply chain and quality issues. So we can help mitigate a lot of those things for our customers and improve that. So it is something that works. And that's why we want to kind of scream it at the top of the mountains, because we want other companies other OEMs, small and medium-sized OEMs who think they cannot leverage or get this type of partnership to know that, hey, look, Amtech's out there, and I'm sure there's other companies out there that would do it, but for your own sake, start considering this type of engagement with other companies.
I love it. Jay Patel is the CEO at Amtech. And Jay, really interesting stuff. Let's keep talking about this, down the road, I don't know, a couple months or something. I'll be curious how it's going for you, what changes you're seeing, what new characteristics this is kind of starting to take on. I think it's interesting stuff. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. And a special thanks to our subscribers and followers. Consider becoming one today wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Hardware is Forever is designed, tested, engineered, and built by the manufacturing experts at Amtech. Learn more and let us help you envision your next project with a free Design for Manufacturing assessment at buildamtech.com/DFM.